Eleanor Hayes, the mother, a woman in her late 60s with silver grey hair styled in surf waves, wearing pearl earrings and a floral dress with purple accents. Her expression carries the weight of years of quiet dignity. Sarah Hayes, the daughter, a woman in her mid-30s, practical and direct. Patricia Daniels, the mother-in-law, Sarah's husband's mother, manipulative and controlling. Michael Daniels, the husband, Sarah's husband of 8 years. The text message came at 3 in the morning. Eleanor sat in her kitchen, unable to sleep as she often was these days. The blue light from her phone cut through the darkness. Sarah's words appeared on the screen, and Eleanor read them once, then twice, letting the meaning settle into her bones. I know you paid $280,000 for this house, but my mother-in-law doesn't want you at Christmas dinner. Eleanor set the phone down gently on the kitchen table. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garden she had planted when Sarah was just a little girl. The roses were dormant now, waiting for spring. Everything has its season, she thought. She picked up her phone and typed a single word. Oh right, that was all. Just one word. But in that moment, Eleanor Hayes made a decision that would change everything. 5 years earlier the day Sarah and Michael announced they were looking for a house, Eleanor had felt nothing but joy. Her daughter, finally settling down, building a life. Sarah had always been independent, sometimes to a fault, but Eleanor saw the happiness in her eyes when she talked about Michael. We found a perfect place, Sarah had said over coffee, but it's just out of our price range. We're going to keep looking. Eleanor had already made up her mind before Sarah finished speaking. She had been careful with money all her life, saving, investing wisely after her husband passed. She had more than enough. And what was money for, if not for the people you love? Let me help, Eleanor had said simply. Sarah had protested, of course, but Eleanor insisted. Consider it an early inheritance. I want to see you happy now, not worry about it later. The house was beautiful. A 2-story colonial with a wraparound porch and oak trees in the yard. Eleanor had written the check for $280,000 without hesitation. Sarah and Michael would cover the rest, but Eleanor's contribution made it possible. She remembered the day they moved in, how Sarah had hugged her and cried a little. Thank you, We'll pay you back someday. No need, Eleanor had said. Just be happy. The weeks following that 3 a.m. text were quiet. Eleanor went about her routines. She tended her garden, even in winter. She volunteered at the library on Tuesdays. She called her sister in Oregon every Sunday evening. Sarah called a few times, her voice tight with stress. I'm so sorry. About Patricia. She's just difficult sometimes. You know how she is. Eleanor did know. Patricia Daniels had made her opinions clear from the beginning. She thought Sarah had married beneath her son. She criticized Sarah's career, her clothes, her cooking, and she had taken an instant dislike to Eleanor. Perhaps because Eleanor refused to engage in her games. It's fine, sweetheart, Eleanor would say. Don't worry about me. But Eleanor was worrying. Not about herself, but about Sarah. Because in those phone calls, she heard something she hadn't heard before. Exhaustion. Defeat. Her daughter was drowning, and Eleanor needed to understand why. She started paying attention. Small things at first. Sarah mentioning that Michael had been working late a lot. That Patricia insisted on coming over every weekend. That Sarah felt like a guest in her own home. Then came the day Sarah showed up at Eleanor's door unannounced. Her eyes red from crying. Can I stay here tonight? Eleanor pulled her daughter inside, made tea, and waited. The story came out slowly. Michael had been distant for months. Patricia had become more intrusive, rearranging Sarah's kitchen, criticizing her in front of Michael, who said nothing. And then yesterday, Sarah had found text messages on Michael's phone. He was having an affair with someone from his office. It had been going on for 6 months. Eleanor held her daughter while she cried. And in that moment, something hardened in Eleanor's heart. Not cruelty, but clarity. She had given everything to help build this life for Sarah, and it was being destroyed by people who didn't deserve her daughter's goodness. The final move. Eleanor visited her lawyer the next morning. She explained the situation carefully, precisely. The house had been purchased primarily with her money. She wanted to know what her options were. The deed is in both their names, the lawyer said, reviewing the paperwork. But you can establish that you provided the down payment as a loan, not a gift, if you have documentation. Eleanor did. She had kept everything, not out of distrust, but out of habit. a lifetime of careful record keeping. What would you like to do, Mrs. Hayes? I want to call in a loan, Eleanor said quietly. I want my money back. She didn't tell Sarah at first. She needed to be certain this was what her daughter wanted. But when Sarah filed for divorce 3 weeks later, Eleanor knew it was time. The legal papers arrived at the house on a Tuesday morning. A demand for repayment of the loan in the amount of $280,000 plus interest, payable within 90 days. Michael called that afternoon, his voice shaking with anger. You can't do this. That was a gift. It was a loan, Eleanor said calmly. I have the documentation. You may want to consult with your attorney, Patricia called next, screaming so loudly that Eleanor had to hold the phone away from her ear. You vindictive old woman. You're trying to destroy my son. I'm protecting my daughter, Eleanor replied, something you should have considered before excluding her from Christmas dinner in the house I provided. She hung up. What? They didn't know the affair had been Patricia's idea. Eleanor discovered this through Sarah, who had found emails between Michael and his mother. Patricia had introduced Michael to the other woman, encouraged the relationship, all as part of a plan to push Sarah out and find Michael a wife Patricia deemed more suitable. The betrayal was breathtaking in its cruelty, but Eleanor had learned something in her 68 years. Revenge wasn't about anger. It was about consequences. It was about teaching people that actions have weight. Michael and Patricia couldn't pay. The divorce proceedings revealed that Michael had been spending money recklessly, trying to impress his mistress. They had no savings. The only asset of value was the house they were forced to sell. Eleanor made certain that Sarah received her share of the equity. It wasn't much after the mortgage was paid off, but combined with Eleanor's returned loan payment, it was enough for Sarah to start over. Michael moved in with Patricia. The mistress disappeared once the money did. 1 year later, Sarah stood in the kitchen of her new apartment, smaller but filled with light. Eleanor had helped her move in, just as she had helped with the house years before. I'm sorry you had to do all that, Sarah said, arranging flowers in a vase. I'm not, Eleanor replied. I learned something important. What's that? That love isn't just about giving. Sometimes it's about protecting. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do is teach people that they can't take advantage of those who love them. Sarah hugged her mother tightly. Thank you for everything. You don't need to thank me, Eleanor said. That's what mothers do. We protect our children, no matter how old they get. Outside, the first flowers of spring were beginning to bloom. Eleanor thought about her garden at home, about how things that seemed dead in winter always found a way to come back to life. Her daughter would bloom again too. Eleanor was certain of it. And as for Patricia and Michael, well, they had learned an expensive lesson about underestimating a mother's love. Eleanor smiled to herself. She had been called vindictive, cruel, manipulative, but she knew the truth. She had simply been a mother, doing what mothers do, protecting her child, always.